It's a blessing to have you here. I've reached 65 myself, and I'm telling this story not just for entertainment, but so we can remember the days of our youth, back when hoofbeats and gun smoke were the very breath of the West. Before we dive into this gripping tale, tell me, what are you doing as you listen to this? Leave me a note in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, I hope you're staying healthy and holding on to the spirit we've always been proud of. Now then, let's begin. I remember the day my life took a hard turn, like it was just yesterday. 100 acres, a busted-down cabin, and the price? $1 silver. Folks these days would call me a liar. But back then, in Texas, nothing was impossible. I'd been drifting across the West for 5 long years, sleeping under the stars, taking any job I could just to keep skin on my bones. When I heard about that patch of land for next to nothing, I figured, maybe the good Lord had finally remembered my name. That evening, the sun hung low like a burning coal. The fence posts leaned tired. The wind whistled through the warped boards like the sigh of an old man about to fall. Out yonder, the cabin stood alone in a sea of deady gold grass, looked less like a home, more like a prayer long forgotten. I pushed the gate open and stepped into the yard. Each footstep echoed in that hollow silence. My heart thudded slow but steady. I was about to start over. Or at least, that's what I believed. Then the front door swung open with a long, lonely creak. I dropped my old leather pack, drew in a breath, and I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Soft, but trying real hard not to be heard. This ranch was supposed to be empty. Carter swore it when he handed me the deed. But 3 hours after I signed my name, I found out I wasn't alone. And then, she appeared on the staircase. Thin frame, hair all tangled, eyes locked on me, not with fear, but with something else, like she'd been waiting for this moment. A long, long time. Name's Elias Mercer. Back then I was barely past 30, but I felt twice that. When a man loses his wife and the land he built with her, time doesn't move forward anymore. It just settles heavy on your shoulders. I left home after we put her in the ground, carrying only 2 things, my Colt 6-shooter and her wedding ring tucked in my breast pocket. For 5 long years I worked for whoever paid enough to keep me alive, herding cattle, felling timber, digging ore. Nights I slept under the stars, back against my saddle, listening to wolves cry out in the dark. And on those nights, I prayed for one thing, a patch of quiet land to grow old on. So when I heard about the $1 ranch, I figured maybe I'd stumbled onto a miracle. Carter, the slick fella at the land office, told me, "Nobody's touched that place in years. You take it off my hands, hell. I'll throw in the paper for free." I didn't ask why. A drifter doesn't ask questions when luck knocks on his door. But luck, out west, always comes with a price it don't mention up front. The girl on that staircase, Clara Boone, she was living proof of it. She stood there, thin as a fence rail, hair loose, dress faded to gray. Those dark eyes fixed on me, not scared, just tired, and maybe a little resigned. "You the new owner?" she asked, voice soft but steady. I nodded, hand still resting on the grip of my gun. Carter said this place was empty. "Carter don't know a damn thing," she said, stepping down the stairs 1 creak at a time. "There are things about this place folks don't put on paper." Every step she took, the boards groaned, dust rising in the slanting afternoon light. She pulled back a torn curtain, pointing out toward the endless prairie. "I've been here 3 years, Clara said. "This place, it saved me, and I've been keeping it alive ever since. The well still runs, the roof still stands, the fence ain't fallen yet." I listened, heart sinking heavy. Men like me don't put stock in destiny. But standing in that cabin, looking at that girl, I knew fate was having itself a laugh. A ranch for $1, a mysterious girl, and a gnawing feeling in my gut that my life was about to get real complicated. I'm truly grateful to have you here. If this story stirs up old memories, dusty trails, hoofbeats echoing in your chest, hit that subscribe button. So every day, we can sit here together, and I'll share another tale from the Old West with you. I remember that day clear as glass. The wind shifted sudden, carried the sting of burnt grass and dry earth. The crows on the roof went dead quiet. That's when I knew whatever story this girl had, it wasn't simple. Clara poured me a cup of well water, her hand trembling just a touch. She sat at the old wooden table, fingers tracing a crack in the grain, like she couldn't decide whether to speak or keep it buried. "I need you to understand," she began, eyes fixed anywhere but me. "The man who sold you this land, Carter, he don't know the half of it. Truth is, no one does. Except me." I kept silent. Out west, silence was how you got folks to tell the truth. Her daddy Boone, she called him, was a miner. Struck the richest gold vein this side of the Rio. But before he could file a claim, the Maddox gang caught wind of it. They staged a cavio in, killed him underground, forged the papers, and took everything. Everything but one thing they didn't know about: his journal. Boone had written it all down: the gold's location, the day and hour of the caviugen, even the names of the killers. Clara found it in the rubble, and from that day on, the Maddox gang had been hunting her across 3 states. 3 years I've been running," Clara whispered, voice tight. "This place, it's the only spot they ain't found." I sat there, quiet as the grave. My $20 ranch turned out to be a hornet's nest. "And now they know I'm here," Clara said, pulling the curtain back to peek out over the prairie. "I saw smoke this morning. They're coming." My fist clenched. After all those years drifting, searching for peace, fate had thrown me right back into the fire. Every bone in me said I ought to walk away, but looking at Clara, thin, tired, but still standing strong, I knew I wouldn't. "You got proof?" I asked. She nodded. Walked to the fireplace, pried up an old floorboard. From beneath, she pulled out an oil-wrapped bundle of leather. "Here," she murmured. "Everything's in here. If this makes it to a judge, Maddox falls." Wind hissed through the cracks in the door, making the lantern flame tremble. I didn't know if I'd just stepped into a new life, or straight into hell itself. I still remember. The wind that afternoon smelled like a storm. The sky turned that copper of red color only folks out west truly understand the color that means trouble's comin'. Clara sat by the window, clutching that leather bundle with the journal inside. Her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. I followed her gaze, and my heart sank. Dust, a thin, rising plume twisting up from the dirt road leading to the ranch. Anyone who's lived out here long as I have knows, that ain't wind-blown dust. That's horse hooves. Didn't need to count, I knew there were at least 3 of them. "They found us," Clara whispered, voice hoarse. I checked my old Colt, hands trembling not from fear of dying, but from knowing the kind of men coming down that road. The Maddox gang. They didn't wear uniforms, didn't fly flags, but everyone knew 'em. Cold eyes, dust-worn leather, and hands that never left their gun grips. The hoofbeats grew louder, mingling with the wail of wind across dead grass. Clara stood beside me, so still I could hear my own heartbeat. "You can run," she murmured. "Slip out the kitchen door, follow the creek out back. They only want me." I looked at her. Truth be told, I'd thought about it. I'd bled and cried enough for one lifetime. This ranch. I bought it for $1, but to me it was a chance to start over. And I knew, if I left her behind, this place would never be home. "No," I said. "I ain't running from my own land." By the time I spoke those words, the hoofbeats stopped. The jingle of stirrups. The crunch of boots on dry dirt. 3 figures broke formation, standing about 50 yards from the porch. The one in front tall, lean, face chiseled like a whetstone. Wide-brim hat pulled low, right hand resting lazy on his gun, left hand holding a red kerchief he used to wipe away dust. Wade Harper, bounty hunter for the Maddox family. He lifted his head, spotted us through the window, and smiled. The kind of smile that chills a man straight to the bone. "Clara Boone," his voice carried across the yard. "Let's have a word. Been 3 years? You done run far enough?" Clara said nothing. I stepped out onto the porch, Colt in hand, voice rough but steady. "This here's my land. Best turn around." Harper chuckled low. $1 for a coffin? You ready to pay that price, Mercer?" Harper stood there, legs spread wide, the late sun cutting across his face and sinking his eyes deep in shadow. The 2 men flanking him drifted apart, forming a half-moon sealing off every way out. I knew that move. Bounty hunters always boxed you in before they pulled the trigger. Just hand the girl over, Harper called out. We ain't here for you, but if you stand in our way, you'll die with her. Sweat slicked my palm. Behind me, Clara stayed silent, but I could hear her quick breaths. You even know who I am? Harper asked, smug in his own voice. I'm guessing you're someone who wasn't invited, I said, Colt lowered but ready. He laughed a dry, rattling sound, like gravel skittering over a tin roof. I'm Wade Harper, Maddox's man. And you just stepped into something way bigger than you realize. I said nothing. Out west, silence speaks plenty. Harper glanced toward the window, trying to see inside. Miss Boone, he called. We both know you've got something that belongs to my boss. Hand it over. And this ends now. Don't trust him, Clara whispered behind me. I gave a small nod, eyes never leaving Harper. She ain't here, I called out, voice calm though my heart hammered like a war drum. Harper tilted his head, smile fading. Interesting. You willing to die for a stranger? Or you got a piece of what she stole? I didn't answer. Just tightened my grip on the Colt. The air thickened. Wind died. I could hear every creak of saddle leather, every rustle of their worn coats. A chill ran down my spine, the kind you feel right before blood spills. Harper pulled a pocket watch from his vest, snapped it open with a click. I'll count to 10, he said. If she don't come out, I treat you as an accomplice. And accomplices die. Clara tugged my sleeve. There's a back door, she whispered. You can still get out. I shook my head. I don't run from my own land. Harper began to count. 1, 2, each number landed like a hammer on a coffin lid. By 9, I heard hoofbeats, new ones, not the 3 already here. These came fast, hard from a distance. Another group was coming. Harper stopped counting, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. Well now, he muttered. Looks like we're about to have company. The new hoofbeats thundered through the valley fast, hard, headed straight for the ranch. Harper stopped counting, eyes narrowing, hand tightening on his revolver. I didn't know if they were friend or foe, but out here, more men usually meant more trouble. The first silhouettes broke over the horizon, 5 riders, dust-streaked but gleaming with something on their chests, badges of brass. Sheriff Bennett. I knew him at once. Lean man, silver mustache, face carved by too many dead bodies buried in hard ground. I'd worked for him once, back when the law still meant something out here, at least sometimes. Wade Harper. Bennett's voice cracked like thunder. Drop your iron. You and your men are wanted for the murder of Thomas Boone. I glanced at Clara. Her eyes went wide, lips trembling at the sound of her father's name. Harper sneered, though I caught the tremor in his hand. The word of a drunken old fool? He shouted back. That ain't enough to hang me. Bennett rode closer, 4 deputies fanning out to box them in. Not just word. We've got a witness. And proof, the proof Miss Boone's been carrying. Harper cursed, then suddenly he yanked me forward as a shield. The cold barrel jammed against my temple. My heart pounded like a war drum, but I kept still. Men out here know. Fear only makes the other man's trigger finger tighter. Back off, Harper roared at Bennett, or I'll drop him. The world went dead quiet. Even the wind held its breath. I could hear Clara's ragged breathing behind the door. Wade, Bennett called, steady as bedrock. Put the gun down. Maddox is finished. We've got the proof. We've got the witness. Killing one more man won't save you now. Harper laughed a dry, broken sound. I'd rather die in gun smoke than swing from one of your ropes. I felt his finger tighten on the trigger. In that instant, everything flashed through me, my wife's face, years drifting under the stars, and that $1 patch of land I'd hoped to grow old on. Then the gun spoke. 1, 2, 3. Gun smoke swallowed the porch, the acrid sting burning my throat. I dove for the ground, dirt and splinters tearing at my skin. Horses screamed. Men shouted. A bullet sang past my ear, hot as fire. When the dust settled, Harper lay sprawled in the dirt, blood darkening the dry earth. Clara stood in the doorway, shaking but alive, and Sheriff Bennett still held his smoking gun leveled steady, a wisp of gray curling from the barrel. When the gun smoke cleared, all that was left was silence, and the dry tang of blood on the wind. Harper lay facey down in the cracked dirt, eyes wide open, but no light left in him. Of the two men he'd brought, one bolted the moment the first shot rang out. The other dropped his gun and fell to his knees, hands trembling like leaves in a storm. Sheriff Bennett walked forward slow, revolver still leveled at his hip, a habit born from seeing too many dying men get off one last shot. He nudged Harper's Colt away with his boot, then crouched to check a pulse. Dead, Bennett muttered, no triumph in his voice. Just a long, tired sigh, another name scratched into the endless ledger of the West. I pushed myself up slow, ribs aching from the fall. Clara rushed to my side, her small hand cold but steady. For the first time, her eyes weren't just wary, they were alive. No longer only the eyes of someone running, but of someone who'd survived. Bennett turned to her. "Miss Boone," he said, softer now. "We've been looking for you 3 long years. We've got witnesses ready to testify against Maddox. But your journal, your words will end this for good." Clara clutched the leather bundle tight. I saw tears rim her eyes, but not the weak kind tears of a soul finally hearing justice knock at her door. "I'm ready," she whispered, "as long as Maddox pays for my father." Bennett nodded, then faced me. "Mercer, you'll need to testify too. Tell the court exactly what went down here today." I just nodded. Out west, men don't say much, we do what needs doing. While the deputies tied up the lone survivor and loaded Harper's body, Clara and I stood side by side on the porch. The wind carried the smell of burnt grass and prairie dust. Off in the distance, the sun sank behind purple mountains, beautiful and lonesome all at once. I'd bought this land looking for peace. Instead, I found war. And a girl I never expected would stay past the storm. The sheriff swung into his saddle. "We'll be back in a week," he said, "to escort Miss Boone to court." As their horses disappeared into the hazy sunset, the ranch fell quiet again. But this time, it was a different kind of quiet. When the hoofbeats of the sheriff and his deputies faded into the horizon, silence settled over the ranch once more. But it wasn't the silence of men waiting for gunfire anymore. It was the hush that comes after a storm has passed. I leaned against the porch, watching the golden dust drift back to the cracked earth, feeling for the first time in years my heart grow lighter. Clara sat on the steps, clutching that leather bundle like it held her father's very memory. She wasn't crying anymore. The sun caught her tangled hair. Painting her in gold, she looked nothing like the frail shadow I first saw on that staircase. "I reckon you'll be leaving when this is all over?" I asked, my voice rough after a day thick with gun smoke. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "Leave? Go where?" Clara smiled, the first smile I'd ever seen on her. "I've been here 3 years, keeping this house from falling apart. I figure I've earned the right to stay." I chuckled low, the sound of a man who'd lost everything and found something he never dared hope for. "You know," I said, "I bought this place for $1. Thought I was buying land. Turns out I was buying a chance." Clara didn't answer, just looked out over the prairie. Out yonder, cactus shadows stretched long under the fading sun. The whole world bathed in that soft orange-purple light you only find in the West. That night, we sat quiet in the old wooden cabin. No more guns, no more hoofbeats. Just the wind whistling through the cracks and the smell of wood smoke from the hearth. For the first time in years, I wasn't alone anymore. Years later, when my hair was white and my hands too shaky to hold a Colt, folks would ask me about the $1 ranch. I'd just smile. I never talked about the gunfights, never about the blood. I only told them about the day a frail girl walked down a staircase and looked at me with eyes that changed my life. If you're listening to this story now, and if it stirred up memories of your own youth of the Wild West, when men lived and died for honor, tell me about it in the comments. I pray you're still strong. And if life ever hands you a chance to start over, even if it only costs a single dollar, don't let it pass you by. And if you'd like to hear more tales like this, I'd sure be grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. Thank you, my friends.